Let's face it, when it comes to the human desire to capture, chronicle, and categorize every animal we come into contact with, mistakes happen. Sometimes historical animals are misidentified or cobbled together out of bones that don't actually belong to them. And still, some fantastic beasts are just made up entirely. That means the animals of the past may not really be animals at all, but figments of someone's imagination and/or eventual characters in the Harry Potter franchise. From penguins that never were to arachnids that made black widows look like ladybugs, let's take a look at some historical animals that may have never actually existed. Frogzilla. When fossilized tracks were found in the Elk County woods near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1948, paleontologists weren't sure what they were, but the press knew. "Heavy definitive imprints in the sandstone," wrote a local reporter, "as though made by a giant chicken as it hopped across the surface." Right. Happily, the giant chicken theory didn't persist for long. According to Wired, it was clear to paleontologists that the tracks had been made in a time before chickens, millions of years before KFC or birds of any kind. In fact, in that particular era of geologic time, insects and amphibians ruled the world. That led people to speculate that the tracks may have been a giant frog, which would have had legs about 2.5 feet apart. It wasn't until 1983 that two paleontologists decided to have another go at uncovering the origin of the tracks. They determined that they couldn't possibly have been left by a vertebrae because, well, science. Instead, they decided the tracks were probably left by a giant sea scorpion. Good thing giant sea scorpions are way less terrifying than giant frogs or chickens. A sum of its parts. Early paleontologists were sort of like kids with boxes of jumbled Legos. These parts don't actually look like they came from the same set, but they were in the same box. So that means this truck has a mast and a grappling hook. And in that way, many fossilized creatures made the journey from never existing to totally never existing. Just total bloopers of historical animals. One such example is the Hunter Island penguin. According to Mental Floss, scientists were excavating a prehistoric trash heap on Tasmania's Hunter Island in 1980, when they discovered a set of penguin bones that appeared to be different from the bones of any other known penguin species. So they named the bones, and then congratulated themselves on being such awesome species discoverers, and lived happily ever after. Until 2017. When someone decided to ruin everything and do some DNA testing on the bones. And oops, they were actually bones from 3 totally different, very much not extinct penguins. Curse you, modern forensic science! You're no fun at all.
Science sucks.
Itsy Bitsy Lighter. You know what the world needs? A giant spider. You know, a Frodo-eating, Harry Potter menacing, freaking enormous spider.
You're so beautiful.
Just kidding. The world does not need, nor has it ever needed, a giant spider. So thankfully, Megarachne, the spider with a foot-long body and a leg span of over 19 inches, did not actually exist. According to Wired, in 1890, a paleontologist announced he'd discovered the remains of a giant spider in Argentina. Then he hid it away in a bank vault so no one would ever question that giant spiders once roamed the earth. Then, in 2005, biologists up and reclassified Megarachne as a giant sea scorpion, and arachnophobes everywhere rejoiced. Baloney. In another tale of DNA totally ruining decades of tradition and the hopes and dreams of children, another animal that probably never existed is the Kupre, otherwise known as Cambodia's national animal. In 1937, a hunter shot an odd-looking ox. The creature weighed nearly a ton, had large crescent-shaped horns, and didn't seem to resemble any known species of ox living in the area. For whatever reason, no one really questioned the claims that this unfortunate creature hailed from a heretofore unheard-of genus. According to National Geographic, even the Harvard Museum of Comparative Zoology was on board, displaying the stuffed and mounted specimen as a new species of ox. Live Kupres existed in the wild in small numbers, which prompted its rise to the status of Cambodia's national animal, as well as nationwide efforts to preserve the species. And then researchers from Northwestern University in Chicago had to come along and DNA test all the fun away, concluding that the animal was actually just a feral cross between 2 very common types of domestic oxen. Let's give those scientists a round of applause and the Nobel Prize for party pooping. Hydrartophus. The word dinosaur was coined in 1842, after which fossil collecting became a national pastime. But not everyone was qualified to do it. Amateurs assembled skeletons all wrong, and sometimes the bones of several creatures would get mixed up into one skeleton, much like what happened with the never actually existed Hunter Island penguin. Sometimes, though, these misassembled fossils are cool. So cool that museum people may say things like, "We know this is wrong, but it's just way too cool to do anything about." According to Atlas Obscura, in 1845, a fossil prospector found some vertebrae from an extinct giant whale called a Basilosaurus. He then assembled them into a 140-foot serpent he called Hydrarchos, or the Water King. Anyone who knew anything about fossils could have called baloney on this dude's creation. But King Friedrich Wilhelm IV of Prussia had no idea, because what king knows anything about paleontology?
Ain't nobody got time for that!
King Wilhelm was so impressed that he paid real money for the fake monster and had it displayed at the Royal Anatomical Museum, even though the museum's scientists had their suspicions. After that success, this fossil phony decided to build another Hydrarchos, which he sold to a museum in Chicago. It remained on display until the Great Chicago Fire destroyed it in 1871. How fitting for the reign of the Water King to end in flames. Thanks for watching. Click the grunge icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.